And good Friday morning to you. Welcome back to First News, 11 minutes after 7 o'clock. And this week our state let us know once again that we have a $1 billion+ surplus in the state's budget after we all paid our taxes to the state. And now joining us to talk about that and what can be done to possibly keep more of that earned money in our individual pockets is the founder and CEO of Opportunity Arkansas, Nick Horton. And Nick, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
You bet. We sure appreciate the time. So, Nick, before we talk about the tax surplus, can you first tell people what Opportunity Arkansas is and what you guys do here in the state?
Yeah, absolutely. Opportunity Arkansas, we are a relatively new policy organization. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary next month, and we're a state-based think tank is kind of a way to think about it. Similar to like the Heritage Foundation or some of these other groups at the national level, but we're really focused on creating homegrown solutions to Arkansas-specific problems. And so we are, our mission is to renew the land of opportunity by simplifying government and solving generational problems. We've got a lot of generational problems that I call them here in Arkansas, whether it's poverty, dependency, state government that's too big, record violent crime, you name it. We've got a broken foster care system. And so we're really committed to finding solutions and then partnering with state policymakers to try to solve some of these problems.
Yeah, no, it seems like you guys are doing a lot of good work. The website is opportunityarkansas.org if you want to see everything about the organization and what they do here in the state and get more on what they're actually working on right now. You can go to opporunityarkansas.org. But, Nick, the reason we called was to talk about what needs to be done in our state to get rid of such a big surplus in taxes every year, which seems simple. You just cut taxes and that's it. But in your opinion, what should happen moving forward to eliminate at least the size of the surplus each year?
Well, there's some question about whether or not these are, really genuine surpluses or if it's just bad budget forecasting. I've kind of come to the position that I don't really care. The reality is the state has more money than they said that they would have or that they expected to have, and it's time to start giving some of it back to the hardworking taxpayers in the state of Arkansas. And so we could debate, methodology and why do these surpluses keep happening? Are they good? Are they bad? But at the end of the day, I think this is a real opportunity that state policymakers should seize to put some of this money back in the pockets of hardworking Arkansans. Certainly the governor and a lot of legislators, state legislative leadership have said they want to get rid ultimately entirely of the state income tax. I think this surplus and the recurring surpluses that we've seen the last few years are a great opportunity to do that. And so we've been vocal about our disappointment, frankly, with the very small income tax cuts that happened during the regular session.
Right.
And I think this presents an opportunity for us to, a second chance to kind of get that right and say, let's come back into special session very briefly. We're supportive of that, and let's do another couple $100 million at least of income tax cuts. I think that's a very responsible way to do it, but also sends a signal and a clear message to folks that we're serious about getting rid of the state income tax, and we're going to start taking big steps in that direction instead of just continuing to nibble around the edges.
Well, and I know there's a lot of support for that comment right there to start cutting that income tax. Nick, do other states around the country have as big a surplus as Arkansas? I know other states have surpluses, but do other states have as big a surplus as Arkansas has?
That's a good question. That's something we can look into, certainly. States have different fiscal year endings, and so a lot of times you're not going to, some of them in September, some of them in December, so sometimes you're not going to get that information for a few more months. But I think at the end of the day, look, you mentioned, the support for getting rid of the state income tax. That's something we've done polling on consistently and found that the voters of Arkansas support that. We're surrounded by 2 states, Tennessee and Texas, that have no state income taxes. Mississippi has announced that they're marching towards no state income tax. So, we're going to get left behind, and we're going to lose our state motto of "Thank God for Mississippi" if we don't hurry up and get our act together. So we've got a real opportunity here, and I think we should seize it. Look, and I think there is some urgency here too. I'll just say, I think the longer we wait and twiddle our thumbs and try to figure out what are we going to do. We got $1 billion. What are we going to do with it? It's already started, Toby. All the special interest groups trying to figure out what piece of that are they going to get. What are we going to spend it on? Whose district is it going to go to? You know, what special interest group is going to get some new big tax incentive or big spending sent their way?
Mm-hmm.
We've got to act quickly, I think, to send a message and say, we're going to return this money to the people. We took in more money than we needed. We took in more money than we thought we were going to. We all know it's taxpayer money. We're going to give it back to the taxpayers instead of continuing to just figure out ways. Because what's happened in the past, you know, is we get these big surpluses and then we just spend a bunch of time figuring out how we're going to spend it.
Right.
And instead of spending it, I think it's time to start giving it back to the people that it belongs to, and that's the hardworking taxpayers of Arkansas.
You know, as far as the process to do this, you talked about, you know, hey, let's have a real quick special session and get this going. Is that a tough thing? Obviously, you know, you can call a special session and make that happen. But as far as the actual process, I mean, do you feel like that we would have enough legislators that would be behind this, or do you feel like there'd be a lot of pushback? And so how hard do you think the process would be to cut the income tax and to do it quickly? I mean, is it a hard process? And if so, if it is an easy process or a quick process, why do you think we are dragging our feet so much on this?
Well, I think to answer both of those, I don't think it would be particularly difficult. You know, the governor in the state of Arkansas, the governor is the only one that can call a special session. And so if she were to do that, I think that she would have the support that she needed to get that done, and knowing how she operates and how her team operates and how effective they are, I think they would have the votes in line before they would ever likely call a special session. Mm-hmm. And look, we've got 82 Republicans out of 100 in the House. We've got 29 out of 35 in the Senate. You know, to some degree, we should be able to do whatever we want, so to speak. And we meaning conservatives. But you know, the answer to the second part of your question is, sometimes we make it more difficult, or sometimes it becomes more difficult than it should, because the special interests in the state, the hospitals, the big insurance companies, the chambers of commerce, there are deep-rooted special interest groups in the state that have basically gotten whatever they wanted for the last 150 years. And so these are the folks that can afford to pay hotshot lobbyist $250,000 a year to do nothing but schmooze state legislators and sit in the state capitol and work bills and work legislation to their benefit. And so, again, that process, unfortunately, has already started. You're already starting to see folks starting to talk about, well, maybe we should use some of this surplus to expand Medicaid even more. Right. Or maybe we should use some of this surplus to expand housing welfare a little bit more. That conversation is happening, and you're seeing it from legislators, but it's coming from somewhere else. A lot of that is being driven behind the scenes by these special interest groups and these lobbyists. And so it should be easy, quote unquote, with the numbers that we have, but a lot of times, you know, there's layers to this, and the special interest groups in the state, we've got a long way to go to break their stranglehold on the legislature and the state government in Arkansas.
So we're talking with Nick Horton this morning, founder and CEO of Opportunity Arkansas. You can see the website at opportunityarkansas.org is where you can go to see more on his group. Nick, one last thing. One of the texters just sent in, how about a taxpayer refund? I know other states have done this where they actually just send a check back to the individuals that paid in taxes. I mean, is that any sort of something that could happen with the surplus?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but I think that the reason that comes to mind as to why that might be less than ideal is that, that's a one-off. Here's your check, and then we're going to leave the income tax rates the same.
Right.
The benefit of a income tax rate cut is that's effectively a perpetual income tax refund that you're going to get every week in your paycheck. And so the legislature could come in, pass additional income tax, tax reduction, pass it with an emergency clause so it goes into effect immediately, and then effectively, if you're a working Arkansan that's paying income tax, you're going to see that in your very next paycheck most likely, and you're going to get immediate income tax refunds in perpetuity. So I think that, to me, that's a better long-term solution.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly that is an option that they could consider, but I would advocate for let's make this permanent, and let's take these savings and bake them into our tax code and make sure that we have long-term tax relief, not just a temporary one-off relief.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I think having it go on long-term would be much better than the short-term one-time check that could show up. But, Nick, unfortunately, we're out of time. There's a lot more we could go over. But once again, I want to give out Nick's website. It's opportunityarkansas.org is where you can go and see Nick's policy coverage and what they're working on with that organization. But, Nick, I sure appreciate you coming on the show this morning and having a conversation about this tax surplus. And we'll do it again soon, so I appreciate it.
Would love that. Thanks for having me.
All right. There goes Nick Horton, founder and CEO of Opportunity Arkansas.